I'm someone who likes to do a lot of things by myself and not rely on other people. But when you can't feed yourself by yourself at the age of 18, I had to ask for help. So it really taught me it's okay to not be okay and to ask for the help.
Yeah. All right, Keira, welcome to the Going All In podcast. I'm excited to have you on here today, get to know more about you, as you have been the one that's been behind the scenes in the social media. You've been a blessing to us, just getting that stuff up there, taking a lot off my plate, and doing such a great job communicating with the high school kids. So we're going to dive right in. And one of the questions we love is, who is Keira? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a student athlete at Monmouth University. I'm on the rowing team. I'm from North Jersey. I'm a Jersey girl through and through. And I'm a leader on campus. I'm on 2 e-boards on campus, Athletes in Varsity and Best Buddies. And I'm always running around. I work on campus also in the equipment room. So usually I'm just running around. I leave my room at 6 a.m. and I'm back at 10 p.m. But at the end of the day, who I really am is someone who's trying to spread the word and just share my faith with other people.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. And were you this active with your faith in high school as well?
I came to my faith in high school right around the time I found rowing. So they kind of correlated with each other. Cool. I was an athlete my whole life. And then I finally went to start rowing around COVID time. That's when I found rowing. Okay. And I was just trying to carry the weight of the world on my shoulders. And I was like, something's not right. And then I started to explore different options and I found my faith, and I've been able to grow through getting involved in churches at home. And then when I got to campus, the athlete ministry was amazing and really helps me make it through the weeks when the weeks are hard, because it's not easy being a student athlete, but having the community and an identity outside of rowing has made going to rowing and doing everything else easier.
Yeah. I love that you say that. The more than an athlete, right? That's how we met, was when I came over to campus and you guys were doing something special for your, was it finals? It was finals week, right?
Yes, it was finals week.
And then we gave you shirts that said more than an athlete. And I think it's important. I mean, my faith is really strong. And to hear you have that in college, I didn't tap into it till I had gotten out of college. But how in a couple words or sentences, how can you say that your faith helps you when you're spinning?
I would say I've really tapped in, I had my faith going into college, but I really found it my freshman year when I got injured. And the idea of rowing was possibly not even a possibility anymore. I was just trying to make it out the hospital. I was there for 8 nights. So I wasn't I was in the back of my head oh, scholarship, this, that, trying to worry about it all. And I was like, I can't do that. Whatever is going to happen, God's in control. It's, if I show up, God will do the rest. Taking that step of faith, I realized that's all I have to do and God will do the rest. Not saying that I'm not going to put in the work. The work is still important, but at the end of the day, if we show up, God will do the rest.
So you said a little bit about being in the hospital. Tell me, is that the resilience story you're going to tell me? Can you share?
Yes, my freshman year, we went on a training trip to Florida.
Okay.
And I came back and within a week and a half span, I started to lose mobility of my hand. And sports med, amazing people, got super close with them through that. Had no idea what was wrong with me. Saw the team doc. He was like, here's medicine, take it. And after taking the medicine for 3 days, which was 9 pills at the time, I completely had no mobility of my hand. And it was just getting bigger and it was starting to get painful and change colors. And I was called home. I was like, Mom, I know a picture does not do justice of what my hand looks like, but I think I have to go to the hospital. And then I was in the hospital and they couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. And turns out I had MRSA in my hand. Wow. So it was a long journey, but I had so many people come besides me. And the biggest thing I learned from it. And I think like God was trying to teach me, like, you need to learn how to ask for help. I'm someone who likes to do a lot of things by myself and not rely on other people. But when you can't feed yourself by yourself at the age of 18, I had to ask for help. Like, so it really taught me like, oh, like it's okay to not be okay and to ask for the help.
Yeah. How long were you out of rowing for?
I was out from January and I started to work out in like the summer. I started working out right away, but I couldn't row.
Okay.
I was like still training, but still 20 hours a week that part of my scholarship, but I was just on the bike and lifting with chains around my neck because I couldn't use them in my hands. Wow. And in August, I had a third surgery to give me full range of motion again. Okay. And that one was awake to like actually like give me like the range that I wanted. Wow. So, and then right after that third surgery, within a week, once the stitches came out, I was back on the water.
That's so cool. What do you love about being on the water?
I love it's such like a disciplined sport. Like I've done basketball, I've done track, I've done volleyball, I've done any sport under the sun, but rowing's just different. Like you're competing with people, you're not speaking to them while you're rowing, but like you're all like you have to be in sync for a boat to move well. And like it's hard work, and then it's also just like peaceful. Like you look around, like if it's a bad practice, I can just look around for a second and be like, okay, like just reroute to like, oh, like I'm blessed to be alive. I'm blessed to have this opportunity and be like, okay, like this stroke, we're going to do this. And like, just like look around and just take a deep breath and be like, okay, God's going to get me through this. Like, even if it's like a rough practice, and just like the pain that comes with it. But also like once you finish it, it's like, oh, like I did that. Like I'm able to like push that limit. And rowing is such a mental sport because you have to technically be right. You have to physically be right. And like, you just have to like, I've learned to like zone out and just focus one stroke at a time. Like you, just like basketball, you have to bounce back from if you take a bad stroke, because it's just going to keep feeling wobbly unless.
Yeah. And so you must be in your head a lot as a rower. So that self-talk has to be pretty intense.
Yeah, there was a like I don't have a lot of girls have issues with getting on the rowing machine because that's the physical, like rowing in the boat is hard, but like the rowing machine, you're staring at a machine and it's just giving you numbers that you're looking at, and it's telling you if you're going fast or not. Yeah. And we spend a lot of hours on that in the winter, and I don't really have like the mental block of, oh, this is going to be hard, but like getting to the end of the piece is like, my mental talk is like, oh, like, did I show up as best as I could today? Like, if I don't get the results I wanted, and like, if I showed up the way, if I know I did, if I went to bed early, I hydrated, I did everything I could. It's like, okay, leave that at yesterday. Like today's a new day. Like not honing on it. And I'm the person on the team who will like follow up with the people on my team who are like more mentally struggle on the erg and be like, well, is that the best you could do today? Did you just get on there and like fake it till you made it? Like just one stroke at a time. And then once it's over, it's over. Like at the end, like I always like emphasize the fact, like, don't put your, like have, like I tell the freshmen when they come in, don't just row. Don't just be friends with rowers. Go find friends on other teams. Go get involved in clubs, because if you put your identity just in your sport, you're just going to fail, because you're going to fail in your sport inevitably. We're not always going to win and we're not always going to feel our best. But if you have outlets outside of it, it makes being able to show up in your sport a lot easier.
Yeah. Now, when you talk like that to your teammates, which is awesome to hear, are they pretty receptive, or does it take time for them to really understand what you're talking about? Do you guys do any mental training in the rowing team?
I think we try, like, it depends on who I'm talking to. Okay. And like some people, like, it's just going to be hard. Like like whether I talk to myself positively or not, like there's all different attitudes on how to approach things. And we're still trying to find like the culture of the team, because it's a newer team on campus. So like when I came onto campus, there was no upperclassmen that I was looking to and being like, how's this program run? Yeah. It's like, how do we want it to run? Yeah. And like, even so, like we're all coming from different teams, like, and all different teams, and especially in rowing, run differently. Oh, wow. Like there's different types of strokes. There's different types of, some teams are on the water all year round. Some teams are on the rowing machine a lot more than the water. Like, so it really depends on like where you're coming from. And like, you can tell like the different like moods in the room, like, and like, you know who you want next to you on the rowing machine because like it radiates the energy in the room. Like,
oh, energy is so transferred.
You don't want someone who is complaining that they have to do it. Like, I might think the thoughts in my head, but I try to keep them inside my head and not like push them out into the air because once like one person starts complaining, like we all start going like
Debbie Downers.
Yeah. It can get rough sometimes. And I'm just like, no, like this is what you're going to do. Like, and then like sometimes like I'm more of like a inner thoughts, like the mental aspect of it. But then like sometimes I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm going to go with the person next to me. We're going to go together. Like, let's go. Or like, I want to go faster than this person. So like, it's like such a competitive sport in the fact that yes, we're all have to do everything the same and move and sink in the boat. But we're constantly fighting for seats. So like, we're supposed to be so tight, but we're like fighting each other for seats because it's not like you can sub in while racing. It's either you're racing or you're not type thing. So like, it's like, oh, like you encourage your teammate, but also you're trying to go against them at the same time.
Yeah, that's a different dynamic.
Yeah, wow. It's very interesting.
It's gotta be. Yeah. But I guess at the end of the day, like the best woman wins, you know, and then you're going to go represent the team. And then the next time it keeps you on your toes to keep working like really hard because you're not only competing against the other team, you're competing against each other as well.
Yeah, it brings a different type of culture into the team.
Yeah.
Like my team at home, I would say like that's where I really fell in love with the sport.
Yeah.
Because we were like a family, but like families like bicker a little bit, but like we were completely honest with each other. Like we had a scale that basically we would call each other out if we didn't think people were showing up like the best that they could in the week. And we would say like where we thought we fell on the chart, like, oh, I'm doing great this week. I'm compliant. Like I'm just doing what I have to do, or I'm going at like above and beyond, or this person's slacking. And then the whole team would have to respond yes or no, like if they agreed.
Wow.
And it was just pure like honesty.
Yeah.
And
it's a little easier in a high school sport because you're all from the same area and you tend to know each other a little bit better. And the only way to be able to do an activity like that is if you're vulnerable and honest with each other. And that's where you become family. And that's like when you get to college, that culture really needs to be developed because you're coming from so many different backgrounds, different schools, different levels of ability. You could be the star at your high school and now you're coming into a college team and it's like, who are you? You know, big fish, little fish. It's tricky, but I think the number one thing you're saying right now is about vulnerability. And that's very important, to be vulnerable, to be able to take criticism, to be able to give it, to be able to receive it. It's important. I think that really makes or breaks a team's chemistry. 100%.
Yeah, the transition from high school to college was huge for me. Like I was like, what did I get myself into? Like, because my team from home, we weren't all from the same high school. We were a club team. Oh, so we pulled from all different counties. Some people drove an hour to our boat club.
Oh, wow.
And so like we did as much as we could together outside of school. We practiced 6 days a week. We would hang out after practice. And then when I got to college, I was like, this is different. Like this is going to be an adjustment. And in high school, I got to see the process of building a team because when I started rowing, there was new leadership in my boat club. So new coaches. So I watched like the culture build, and looking at it now, I have friends at home who are winning national championships. And it's like, look how far it came just from the own your mistakes. They taught it, like rowing has taught me so much about respect. Like my coach wouldn't speak unless you gave him eye contact. Wow. If your body language was closed, he was going to wait for you to have open body language. So like it taught me like a lot, like, okay, you're going to figure out how to do this by yourself. So when you get to college, it's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Because
that's amazing to hear that is happening. Like, so with that, you've given a lot of advice so far. This is incredible. I love it. I'm eating it up. But like, what would be one thing you would also tell like your freshman year self for other people going into college? What would you tell yourself? What advice would you give?
Not to completely expect it to be what your experience was in high school, because it's not. Like leaving what was like a family to like go to college, like it was exciting, and it's like, oh, I'm representing my family at home, like but it's also, don't over compare. Like it's okay to like make like references, but it's not this way or the highway. It's like you have to be willing to adapt, because if you're not, that's when you go through the darks of like, what am I doing? Like, why am I here? And just own your mistakes when you make them. Show up how you want your teammates to show up.
Yeah. Like, adaptability, right? And being, like you said before about failure, you have to know how to fail. And if you haven't figured out how to fail, because you're going to have to readjust in college, because you're not going to be the star and you have to step up. Yeah, I think that's right now coaching. That's something that I'm seeing, is that making sure kids know how to fail. And then when you do fail, you just fix it and then you move on. But it's, if you wallow in the failure, that's where the mistake becomes a mistake, in my opinion. You know,
and you keep making the mistake. And I am not the typical height of a rower. Most rowers are tall. And my boat club, I was the bottom of the team. Yeah. I was rowing with girls who ended up at UConn, who ended up at Yale, like who ended up at really good rowing programs. Yeah. But I was a leader on that team because of the way I showed up to practice, the way that I would hold people accountable. And it's not a problem to, it's uncomfortable to hold people accountable at times, but it's needed, like to like take space. And like everyone has whether there's a leadership role like in your name or not, like you still have the ability to lead. Like people are watching what you're doing.
I love it. That's awesome. So like you're kind of talking about all in, right? So define what it means to be all in to you.
For me, it means to take a step back and not trying to do it all, because I'm one of those people who
I've noticed
who tries to do it all. I run around like a crazy person, but my two words that each year I've been dedicating a word and just trying to stick to it. Last year was intentional, and it came with me this year. And then I added the word regardless. Regardless, I'm going to show up. And if I'm not feeling well, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do my best for that day. It's not, if I'm not feeling well, I'm not going to show up today. I'm going to show up, do the best I can. And I'm not going to not let people down, but I'm not going to change who I am for anyone, and just show up as authentic and like be intentional with the conversations I'm having, because it goes a long way. Yeah. Both those two words have got me to like be intentional with the conversation I'm having. I'm not going to say, oh, like if you need something, I'm here for you, and then not actually be there for you if you text me and you actually need something. Yeah. Try to make sure if I'm saying it, I'm going to hold myself to it.
Yeah. I love asking our community of athletes in All In like what it means, and then they're out spreading their tentacles to make sure people know that it's not going all in at all costs. It's the word is deceiving, right? Because if you look it up, it's like from poker when you put all your chips in, so it's like I'm all in, but it also means to like know when to pause, know when to pivot, know when to go a different way. Like, and I love that you said well, all in means that I got to slow down sometimes, which is awesome.
Yeah, I think it also comes down to like, for me, I have to sometimes take a step back and be like, what's the cost and benefit of what I'm doing? Is this going to benefit me, but at what cost? Or is it going to like benefit someone else, but at what cost to me? And like reevaluating, because I love to help people. So I need to sometimes take a step back and be like, okay, I want to help, but is my way of helping going to even be efficient? Because something like I've learned with my faith, I can't save anyone. I can plant seeds, I can help people, I can love them, but that's as far as I can do. Yeah. So, and just making sure that when I am making decisions, I'm not making them just for myself, but also evaluating if it will be a hurtful decision to myself. Like it might not be like, oh, I'm going to harm myself, but am I going to be going towards burnout? Like, because I often will find myself like burning it on both ends, and I'm like, I'm getting to the burnout point, but I'm not burning out because like my schedule is just my normal.
Yeah. So like, I'm going to ask you a deep question. So when you go and you do all these things and you wear these different hats and you're helping a lot of people, like, do you know when to recognize that like I'm running from something? Do you feel like sometimes you're busy because you're running from something, or do you feel like you're just busy because that's your comfort zone?
I feel like sometimes I'm not even comfortable in my own schedule. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, like what am I doing? Yeah. And I'll take a step back and be like, but what can I change? I'm like, and just acknowledge like the roles that I do have. Okay. And like for me, a big thing is like, oh, I have to do this.
Okay.
But if I find myself just being like, oh, I just have to get to the next thing, I try to slow down and be like, okay, like you're doing this. And sometimes I don't want to wake up at 6 a.m. and go to practice, but it's like, okay, you're going to do it. And like, I come back to like, yes, this might not be what I want to be doing in the moment, but like, how can I like dig into my faith, and also when I'm doing it, show up in a way that like, it's like, oh, like, why is she showing up like so like ready to go? And it's like,
so you have a purpose. The purpose really helps you.
Yes, the purpose of like trying to like serve is like what keeps me going. And then I have my outlets. Like,
I was just going to say, what are your outlets? What are your coping skills?
So my big one is Sundays I'm at church, and I found a church home at school, which took some time. Like I had to hop around to see where my community was, and I found my community. They're like family to me. So I'm there on Sundays. I'm in a life group on Tuesdays, Wednesday nights with other athletes who are all in their faith. One, it's encouraging to know that I'm not in it alone in athletics, because it's very easy being an athlete on campus to try to go into the worldly ways. Like everyone's like student athlete, but I'm like, yes, I'm a student athlete, but that's not who I am at the root of it. Like sports are going to end. Like, but what am I doing what am I outside of sports? Because I am something else. Like injury, like was like, okay, like if I'm not able to row, I'll figure something else out. Like knowing that my identity isn't in that, and having the support of like athletes in a varsity has been incredible. Because as I said, I came to Monmouth, and it was the first year of it being a Division I sport on campus. So there was no upperclassmen, and I got injured, and I had no idea what this process was going to be like. Can I keep my scholarship if I can't go back to rowing? How long do I have to recover? Like all these questions were coming to my head. I'm like, how do I be a part of the team when I'm practicing by myself for 20 hours a week? Yeah. And like, I spoke to like a girl on the soccer team who I really looked up to, and I was like, I know you got injured your freshman year, and I know you've gotten injured a few times since being here. How'd you do it? How'd you dig into your faith? What's the ways to do it? And it's nice to have an outlet that isn't a teammate, because within a teammate, it can be negative and damaging the culture. But if it's just a conversation with someone who's of faith and going to bring you back to like yes, this might stink right now, but there's a reason. There's a testimony that's coming from the struggle that you're in.
I love that. That's so cool. It's really neat that you talk like that. I think it's really going to set you up. And yes, athletics teaches you a lot, and that's the foundation at times, but the foundation is really Jesus. And it's nice to hear. And you're spreading that word, and having you on the podcast to be able to share it is really cool. This is like the first time that I brought someone on the podcast to really talk even more in depth about that. And I have 3 guests today that all will be talking about it, because, you can't shy away from that if that is your coping skill and that's what you look, for. I mean, because that definitely grounds anybody for 100%, so it's really cool. So we have about 2 minutes. One question I like to ask is like, what is your resilience story besides your hand? Do you have another one that really defined you?
I come from, it's just me, my mom, and my brother at home, and very family oriented. And sometimes that's what I look back on. I'm like, okay, like, even like, yes, I have God. Yes, I have like my teammates to push me, but it's like, I'm also doing it for my mom, who sacrificed so much for me. And it's like, my mom sacrificed so much for me, and I'm gonna the work that she put in, I'm gonna put in the same amount of work that she put in for me, and make my goal is to help make her proud and be able to give back to her.
I love that so much. That's so cool. You're so special. I'm so glad you're part of our All-In team. Thank you for dealing with all my text messages at all times, and just growing our platform in the right way, knowing it's in your hands, and you lead with compassion and empathy, and you're very calm with the kids when they're asking questions. I think it's great. So Keira, we wish you the best of luck. And this is obviously, we're going to continue to talk, but thanks for blessing all of our community, and good luck the rest of this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We're good.